Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to one and all. Today we'll study about CPCSE guideline for animal experimentation and handling. I am Sheikh Abu Sufyan. Welcome you to AS Academy Learning Forever. At the end of this e-learning session, you are able to define CPCSEA, discuss objectives, composition and function of IAEC, explain CPCSEA guideline for animal handling, experimentation, anesthesia and euthanasia. So let's see, what do you mean by CPCSEA? So CPCSEA, basically it is a committee for the purpose of control and supervision of experiments on the animals. It means this committee is responsible for the control and supervision of experiments which is related to the animals. So before formulation or constitution of this committee, there is no proper supervision and the control on experiment which is conducted on the animal. Anyone can do the animal experimentation even without proper guidelines and follow-up of the procedure for conducting the animal experiment. But after constitution of this committee, there is proper guidelines are framed with reference to the experiments which is conducted on the animal and also for the breedings of experimental animal. So there are two important guidelines or the basically acts. So the first act, it is the Prevention of Cruelty to the Animal Act. So it was first time come into the picture in 1960 and then it was amended several times. So there are this rule, it is basically to prevent infliction of unnecessary pain or suffering on the animal. So no matter whether the tool we are using for conducting experiment or to conducting the research, it is the animal, but still they are living being. Since they are a living being, you need to ensure that there is no unnecessary pain or the suffering while conducting the experiment on the animal. So there are different guidelines which are set in line with Prevention of Cruelty to the Animal guideline, that is called as the PCA, and these guidelines or the set of the guideline, it ensure there is no cruelty to the animal. So this is the first act. Second act, which is related to breeding of and experiments on the animal. So again the control and supervision, it is there on the both the breeding as well as the experiments. Okay, so it was first time framed in 1998 and then it was several times amended and fresh guidelines are also available on the CPCSEA website. So basically these guidelines are to regulate the breeding and experimentation on the animal. So you must ensure the proper breeding procedure. Everyone cannot do the breeding of experimental animal. There are some set of guidelines. You need proper animal house facility and some license from the competent authority for the breedings of the experimental animal. Likewise, there are certain guidelines are framed under this also for the experimentation on the animal. So Breeding and Experimentation Act, that is 1998, and then further amended act, it is basically to regulate breeding and experimentation on the animal. So we have seen there are two important acts which control or which provide basically the guideline for breeding, then conducting of the experiments on the animal, and also how to handle the different types of experimental animal. So first thing is that is the CPCSEA guideline. So CPCSEA, it is responsible to take all the measures which are necessary to ensure that animals are not subjected to unnecessary pain or the suffering. So these guidelines which give you a certain landmarks or which give you a certain points where if you follow those points or you follow those guidelines, then there will not be unnecessary pain or suffering to the animal. So CPCSEA, it is basically responsible to take all these measures which are necessary to ensure these things, right? So generally what happens, we ensure that there is no pain before the experiment. We must ensure there is no pain or the animal is not subjected to unnecessary pain or the suffering both before, during or after performance of the experiment. So no matter whether you perform the experiment, So although the animal it is of no use, but still you have to ensure that you take proper care of that animal so that there is either rehabilitation, that animal can be corrected, or treatment it is given so that he can be rehabilitated, or if there is no possibility of the rehabilitation, then further process can be applied for the sacrificing that particular animal. Okay, so these are different guidelines which ensure the proper treatment which is given to the animal which are used for the experimental purpose. Now let's see what do you mean by IAEC, that is called as Institutional Animal Ethical Committee. So basically the enforcement of CPCSE guideline at the institution level, it is done by Institutional Animal Ethical Committee. Since it is Institutional Animal Ethics Committee, it is called as IAEC. So point to be remembered here is that the CPCSEA, it is central government authority, and office of CPCSEA, it is lie in New Delhi. So New Delhi they having the office. But if you perform experiment in the institute, obviously the competent authority from the CPCSEA, it is not possible from them to every time supervise experiment which is conducted at the different institute, because there are n number of institute present in at national level. So there are 1,000 and 100,000 institutes are there. So it's very difficult for the central authority of the CPCSEA to monitor and supervise this experiment, isn't it? So to monitor and supervise this experiment, it is mandatory for every institute who perform experiments on the animal to formulate or to constitute Institutional Animal Ethical Committee, and their approval it is to be taken from the CPCSEA. Okay, so the competent authority or qualified persons, their name must be recommended by the institute, and then those names will be sent to the CPCSEA. CPCSEA will approve those members. In addition to that, they will add the name of 2 to 3 additional members who are external to the institution, right? So this is how the enforcement of CPCSE guideline at the institution level, it is done by Institutional Animal Ethical Committee. Now what do you mean by IAEC, and who is there in this committee, so and what are their objective? So that we'll see now. Okay, so the IAEC, it is comprised of a group of persons which are recognized and registered by the CPCSEA. So this is very important. Anyone cannot be the member of the IAEC. Yes, institution can recommend the name to the CPCSEA, but those members must be recognized by CPCSEA. Okay, and once those are recognized, means they are registered under the act of the CPCSEA. So once they are registered or they are recognized by the CPCSEA, then only they can able to do their duties at the institution level for conducting the experiment on the animal. So let's see what are the objective of this committee at the institution level. So the IAEC objective. So what I did is I have taken objective directly from the CPCSE guideline. I have not done any changes into that. Okay, so first I will read out those guidelines and then I will explain what is expected in that particular point. Okay, so the first point is, or first objective is, the experiment shall be performed in every case by or under the supervision of person who is duly qualified. What it means? It means, suppose if you are a student, if you want to perform any research work on the animal, then you are as an individual, you do not have right to perform that experiment on the animal unless you take some mentor or some guide who is duly qualified and he is recognized by the institute, isn't it? So if he is duly qualified, then you can perform your research work under his or her supervision, isn't it? So experiment shall be performed in every case by or under the supervision of person duly qualified. He must be duly qualified, or you are doing experiment under his supervision, isn't it? So this is the most and first important objective of the IAEC. Second objective is, the experiments are performed with due care and humanity. So you should take all those measures which are needed to take care of those animals and to provide human touch to the animal. It's not like, since they are animals, so you can treat them in the way you want. That is not the case. You need to take care of those animals. You see that there is no unnecessary pain, and if unnecessary pain is there, or if the pain or your procedure involving pain is there, then you should adopt certain strategy to reduce that pain which is caused to the animal. Okay, so the experiments are performed with due care and humanity. Third objective is that in course of experiment, try to understand, it is very important, in course of experiment under the influence of the anesthesia. So when you are giving anesthesia, obviously you give the anesthesia when you are conducting some surgical procedure. One thing. Second thing, if your procedure involve very severe pain, then either you give analgesic drug or you can give the anesthesia, isn't it? So in course of the experiment under the influence of the anesthesia, if those animals are so injured that their recovery involves serious suffering, it means either there is recovery, it is not possible, or the recovery involve very serious suffering, means the animal it is lying in a pain. If that is the case, then those animals are ordinarily destroyed while still insensible. What it means, if they are under the pain, then you should not keep as it is, so that they die their natural death under the pain, isn't it? Like you know that they are under the pain. Then in such case, what you can do, you can adopt the method where you can sacrifice those animals without pain. So those methods are called as painless methods of killing the animal. So there is no pain to the animal even after during the process of the sacrificing or the killing. But since there is no pain to the animal, it means although it is the method of euthanasia or sacrificing to the animal, but it doesn't provide the pain. So you need to adopt those methods that you can learn when you handle the different experimental animal. Let's see what is the fourth objective. So the fourth objective is experiments on the animals are avoided wherever it is possible to do so. It means if you know that if you have any method where instead of animal you will come to know your result by using the chemicals, enzymes, cell lines, you can use it. Don't use the animal, isn't it? So animal can be used only when your pharmacological result or your investigation, it is not possible with either in vitro method or by using the chemical bioassay or by using enzymatic assay or by using the cell line. If in those cases, if you know that it is not possible to do further investigation and it is necessary or it is mandatory to use the animal for your experiment, then only you should use the animal. Otherwise, experiments on the animals are avoided wherever it is possible to do so. Next important thing, when you perform the experiment, you select as far as possible the smaller animal. I would suggest select the living being like a Drosophila, zebrafish larvae or the zebrafish, or you can go to the mice. Then extreme case you can think about the rat or the rabbits and the guinea pig, isn't it? So as far as possible you select the smaller animal. Larger animals are avoided when it is possible to achieve the same result by experiment upon the smaller laboratory animal. Now what do you mean by larger animal here? So larger animal, it means like the monkeys, the cat, and sometimes you do experiment even on the horse. So those larger animals must be avoided whenever it is possible to achieve the same result by experiments upon small laboratory animals. So these are the first 5 IAEC objective. Let's see the next objective of the IAEC, that is the sixth objective. So experiments are not performed merely for the purpose of acquiring manual skill. For example, if you just want to learn the bioassay, so if you want to learn bioassay, then you are not eligible to conduct the experiment because you want to do the experiment just for the learning. So for the learning you cannot actually do the experiment. So that is the reason if you see even in your second year practical and your final year practical, there are many practicals are kept for the demonstration. Why? Because you cannot perform the experiment merely just for the purpose of acquiring manual skill. So if you want to acquire the manual skill, you can go through the demo experiment and you can acquire it. Or else if you want to have the real-time skill, then you perform some investigation or the research which is related to the animal and then perform experiment under the supervision of duly qualified person. So you will get exposure to acquire real skills which are related to animal handling and the experimentation. So this is how you can do, okay? But in no case experiments are performed just for the purpose of acquiring manual skill. Seventh objective is experimental animals are properly looked after both before and after experiments. So before and after experiment till complete rehabilitation of those animals, you must look after those animals. And last objective is that suitable record are maintained with respect to the experiment. So we'll see four types of record that every institution or institutional animal ethical committee, they have to maintain with respect to the perform of the experiments on the animal. So these are basically the 8 objective of institutional animal ethical committee. So the IAC, its work in line with these 8 objective. Now in addition to the objective of the IAC, there are 4 functions of institutional animal ethical committee. So objective is different. So objective is something that IAC want to achieve, but function it is something that IAC is actually doing. Okay, so there are 4 important functions. So first function is the primary duty is to work toward achieving all 8 objective of the IAC. So just now we have seen all the objective. So first and the primary duty of every member of institutional animal ethical committee is to work toward achieving all those 8 objectives. Okay. Secondly, when experiment is performed on the animal, then those experiments should be reviewed and approved by institutional animal ethical committee. So review and approval of all type of research proposal which are involving smaller animals. So this is very important. I have underlined this. That is the smaller animal I have underlined. So experiment on the smaller animals before start of the study. So if you have taken some research proposal and if you want to do an experiment on the research, then you should submit some proposal, and there is one separate form is there that is called as the form B. So we'll be looking into those documents. So there is the form B is there. So you need to fill those detail of your proposal in the form B, where you have to explain about the title of your experiment, why you are performing the experiment on the animal, so justification for the experiment on the animal, why you are not conducting that experiment on the by using chemical method, enzymatic method. So you need to give proper justification, number of animals required, and what methodology you are adapting for conducting that particular experiment. So all these things you need to mention in the form B, and there are some additional details are there. So you can go to CPCSEA site and see how the form B it is there and what are the different inputs you have to fill in the form B. So you have to add those information in the prescribed format of the form B. Then that form B will be reviewed and approved by institutional animal ethical committee. And unless and until it is not reviewed and approved, you cannot perform any experiments on the animal. Okay, so this is the second important function of institutional animal ethical committee. Third is the large animal experiments. Suppose if you want to conduct experiment on the larger animal, you have done with the experiment on the smaller animal, and now to further explore your research, if you thought of doing experiment on the larger animal, then remember that IAEC cannot give approval for the experiment on the larger animals. That is the reason why I have underlined the small animal. IAEC can only give approval proposal of the experiment which is conducted on the smaller animal, not larger animal. Suppose if there is proposal related to the larger animal, what IAEC can do, larger animal experiments are required to be forwarded to the CPCSE with IAEC recommendation. It means those proposals can be reviewed by the IAEC but cannot be approved. What they can do, they can put their recommendation. They can write this experiment is recommended due to so and so reason 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Okay, and then those proposal can be sent to the CPCSEA, and now if experiment is there on larger animal, then it is only central government authority, that is CPCSEA, Committee for Purpose, Control and Supervision of Experiment on the Animal, can approve this protocol. Okay, and last function is IAEC is required to monitor the research. Now approval it is done, approval to the protocol it is done. Now researcher will start doing the experiment. It doesn't mean that researcher can do whatever they want to do, isn't it? Rather, IAEC is required to monitor this research, isn't it? So IAEC is going to monitor this research throughout the study and after completion of the study. So there are different means and way to monitor this research work. One means and way is that there are some internal members are there. Like in our animal house, our IAEC committee, or Dr. Sharik, me, and one more faculty member, it is the internal member. So we are responsible to monitor what is going on in our animal house facility, how students are conducting the research work. So it should be done under our supervision. Okay, so that is the one of the way. Another way is that after completion of your research work, the investigator has to submit the report. One report has to be submitted, and also IAC member twice in a year, they will visit to the animal house facility and see all these reports and the documents which are present in your animal house facility. So these are four important functions that any institutional animal ethical committee to conduct in order to ensure there is no cruelty to the animal, and all CPCSE guidelines are implemented at institute level. Okay, so these are the functions of IAEC committee. Now let's see what is the composition of institutional animal ethical committee. So very important part, it is the composition. As a pharmacist, you must know what is the composition of the IAEC, and most of the time in the synopsis or the quiz, external examiner, he asked this question: what is the composition of institutional animal ethical committee? So let's see what is the composition. So it includes 8 members, and these 8 members, it consists of, first one, it is the biological scientist. So he must be the, you can say, the senior most the person or the employees of the institute. So he is the senior most person, and he must be the biological scientist. Secondly, the 2 scientists from the different biological discipline. Okay, so what do you mean by different biological disciplines? Suppose if pharmacy institute, if they want to register their animal house facility and their institutional animal ethical committee, then in pharmacy there are total 4 biological disciplines are there, like pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy, pharmaceutics, and the pharmacology. Suppose biological scientist is from the pharmacology, then 2 scientists can be selected from different biological discipline, like one from pharmaceutics and another from pharm chemistry or pharmacognosy discipline. Okay, so you can select 2 more scientists, and these are again from the institute. So I am writing this is from the institute, so I am writing I. So you will come to know how many people are there from the institute and how many are from the outside. Third member, it is the veterinarian involved in the care of the animal. Again, institute has to appoint one the veterinarian, and their appointment, it must be approved by the CPCSEA. Fourth, it is scientist in charge of animal house facility of the establishment concerned. He is also from the your institute, and preferably the scientist in charge of animal house facility of the establishment, then he must be a pharmacologist. Okay, so scientist in charge of animal house facility, so that he can take care of entire animal house facility and ensure the smooth conduction of all experiment in the facility. So these are the first, how many members we have done till now? It is the 1 here. Okay, here we have added 2 members, then here 1, okay, plus 1. So till now total how many members are there? That is 1 plus 2, 3, 4 and 5 members. Okay, so these 5 members are from inside the institute. In addition, there is one scientist from outside the institute, so I am writing O, and it is appointed by the CPCSEA. When you send name of these 4 persons to the CPCSEA, they will add 3 members from their side. So these members are appointed by the CPCSEA. So scientists from outside the institute. Then a non-scientifically socially aware member. It is very important persons. And who are generally socially aware member? Generally these are the member who are animal lover, and these are the animal welfare people. So one who is already, although he is not scientific person or he is not technically qualified, but since he having more attachment towards the animal, so one member, it is appointed from a social background and who is socially aware member, and who is generally the animal lover or the animal or the wildlife lover person. Okay, so this is the 6th person, and the 7th member, it is the nominee of the CPCSEA. It is again from the outside, so I have written here. So about 3 are from the outside the institute, and last one, it is the link nominee. So one member is the link nominee, although I have not mentioned here, but he is also the part of CPCSEA. Okay, or he is also part of the institutional animal ethical committee. So how many members are from inside the institute? Are the 5, and 3 members, that is 5, 6, 7, are from the outside the institute. But sometimes, depending upon your research protocol, what type of research you are doing at your institute, you can add 1 or 2 additional members. Now let's see how it could be possible. So the specialist may be co-opted while reviewing special project. What could be the special project? So special projects such as radioactive substances, or if you are using deadly microorganisms. Suppose if you want to perform the experiment or related to some deadly microorganism like tuberculosis or the coronavirus, and if you want to work or deal with those microorganisms, then in such case you need to adopt a specialist for especially the reviewing of that particular protocol, right? In addition to that, the chairperson of the committee and the member secretary will be nominated by the institution from among the 8 members. So if these 8 members are appointed, then institution can nominate 2 more person. It is up to the institute, but institution from internal member will appoint 2 important person. One, it is the chairperson of the committee. So generally the head of the institution, in most of the institute, or the head of the department of pharmacology department can be the chairperson of the committee, and one of the senior most scientists, especially the biological scientist, can work as the member secretary of your IAEC committee. Okay. Lastly, as I already mentioned, member again serial number 5, 6, 7, scientists from outside the institution, then socially aware member and CPCSEA nominee, that is 5, 6, 7 will be nominated by the CPCSEA with provision of the link nominee. That is what I have mentioned. Link nominee for CPCSEA nominee. What is the link nominee? There is one additional member. Suppose if the CPCSEA nominee, due to some reason or one or another reason, it is not possible for him to attend the meeting, then link nominee can take his charge and conduct the meeting in presence of chairperson and different member of the institutional animal ethical committee. Okay, so this is all about the composition of the institutional animal ethical committee. So we have seen the objective, function and composition of IAEC. Now we'll see what are the record that we have to maintain, especially in our animal house facility. And I have already told we need to strictly keep and maintain different record which are needed for animal house facility. So what are those records? So the first record, it is a Form A. So what is the Form A? So Form A, it is for registration of the animal house. Now if you want to start from the scratch, then in such case, first thing that you need to fill it is Form A. So you have to first develop your animal house. You need to make their blueprint, and there are some information like the registration of your institute, maybe through the AICT if it is educational institute. If it is a research institute, then the registration through the competent authority, right? So that and the blueprint and other details of the your animal house facility, it must be sent to the CPCSEA. So you can see this Form A again on the website of the CPCSEA. So I would suggest you to go through the CPCSEA website. You will come to know what are the different particulars of the Form A. So every institute has to maintain the Form A for registration of animal house facility. So once you send this form to the CPCSEA, if you are complied to all the requirement of the CPCSEA, then they will send you a registration certificate of the animal house facility. So if you want to look, you can once our college get open after this pandemic, you can just see that certificate. It is displayed outside animal house facility. So that certificate indicates that our animal house facility is registered by the CPCSEA. So first one, it is the Form A for registration of animal house. Second document which is very important that just now I have discussed is application for permission of animal experiment. So that is the Form B. So you need to add the different particulars where you will be adding the information related to what type of research you are going to conduct, especially on the animal. So that is application for permission for the animal experiment. Form C, it is record of animal breed and acquired. Try to understand. So Form C is related to the breeding and number of animals which are acquired and to be maintained by the breeder and the establishment. And suppose if you do not have breeding facility, then instead of Form C you can maintain Form D, which is a record of animal acquired since you do not have the breeding facility or permission is not there for the breeding, then in that case you need to acquire animal from other breeders. If once you acquire those animal, you need to keep the record of animal acquired and experiment performed, and this is to be maintained specially by the investigator. Suppose if your guide or if your research guide or mentor, if he is the investigator, then it's his responsibility to maintain the form D, where you have added the number of animals, what is the sex of the animal, what is the species, and what type of treatment it is to be given in the short, that you can write in this particular form. So these are the 4 important documents this you need to maintain in order to ensure all the compliance it is done to the guidelines of the CPCSEA. Okay, so these are regarding documents. Now we'll see 2 important procedure which are very important in case of the experimental animal. One, it is the anesthesia and the euthanasia. So we have seen the guidelines of the performing the experiments on the animals and handling of the animal. Okay, now we'll see what are the guidelines for the anesthesia and the euthanasia. So the investigator should ensure that the procedure which are considered painful. So very important, first thing that when we are going to use the anesthesia procedure, that every experiment anesthesia and euthanasia it is not needed. Okay, so if the investigator, if he know that the procedure which are considered to be the painful, if you are using those procedure in conducting the experiments, then appropriate anesthesia as recommended for each species of the animal. So like depends on what species of animal you are using, so you should use that appropriate anesthesia. So generally the procedure which are surgical in nature, like if you want to perform gastric ligation or maybe your sciatic nerve ligation. Likewise, if you want to do some little minor surgery which is related to muscles, or maybe which is related to your cardiovascular system, since you are giving the incision to the animal, you need to ensure that you must give proper anesthesia to the animals, right? So this is the first. Second thing is that it must also be ensured that anesthesia is given for full duration of experiment. It's very interesting. Why? Because sometimes when you do the experiment and suppose you have started giving the incision, you have open thoracic cavity of the animal and you are performing some minor surgery or surgical procedure, and now suppose if animal it is recovered, what will happen? That will lead to pain, severe pain to the animal during the recovery phase, isn't it? So whatever anesthesia you are giving, first you properly calculate for how much time you want to give the anesthesia depending upon your surgical procedure. Based on that, you can select proper anesthetic agent, proper dose of the anesthetic agent, or proper exposure in case of if the anesthetic agents are inhalation in nature. Okay, so that is very important. Otherwise, if the animal it is recovered during the conduct of the surgery, then it may lead to the severe pain to that particular animal. So it must be ensured that anesthesia is given for full duration of the experiment. Next, if at any stage during the experiment the investigator feel that he has to abandon the experiment, means he has to stop the experiment, or he has inflicted irreparable injury to the animal. So there is the injury which is irreparable, means it is not possible for animal to recover. Then in such cases, the animal should be humanly sacrificed. It means you can adopt euthanasia. So this is all about the anesthesia. Let's see what do you mean by euthanasia and what are the different requirements of the euthanasia. So the euthanasia, first see the definition. The animal it is required to be sacrificed humanly. What do you mean by required to be sacrificed? Like if you have given irreparable injury to the animal, right? Or maybe animal it is not possible to rehabilitate it because he having some permanent injury. Okay, so in such cases, those animals are considered as the animal which are required to be sacrificed humanly, right? So when animal it is required to be sacrificed humanly on termination of an experiment or otherwise, so maybe due to other reason, for ethical reason, is called as the euthanasia. So when you are giving definition for euthanasia, this term it is very important. What is that? To be sacrificed humanly. So sacrificing humanly on termination of the experiment or otherwise for ethical reason is called as euthanasia. So the choice of method will be depend upon nature of the study. So what type of investigation you are doing, the species of animal to be killed. So it's depend upon that as well. Because sometimes in case of small animal you can adopt some other method. In case of larger animal, the method which is adopted for the smaller animal, it doesn't work. So you need to adopt some other method in case of the larger animal. So the choice of method will be depend upon the nature of the study and the species of animal to be killed. So most of the time you are using method like spinal cord dislocation. Sometimes you are using the decapitation. Even in our animal house facility, we have the provision for carbon dioxide euthanasia, where the CO2 gas is available, so you can put animal into the chamber and give the CO2 gas, so all oxygen can be replaced by the CO2 and the animal will quickly die even without the pain. And lastly, you can also thought of giving overdose of anesthetic agent for the euthanasia, because in case of overdose of anesthesia as well, if it is not interfering with your study, then it is also the painless killing of the animal. So you can adopt different methods. Let's see what are the requirements for the euthanasia. So there are several requirements. First requirement is that whenever you are conducting the euthanasia, initial depressive action on the central nervous system for immediate insensitivity to pain is needed. So what you can do, if animal it is the larger, maybe the guinea pig, or the animal it is like the rabbit, if the bigger animal is there, then first you can give the CNS depressant drug, like you can use the hypnotic drugs, so they can depress the CNS, animal can sleep, and while sleeping you can sacrifice that particular animal, so it will not produce pain to the animal. So initial depression action to central nervous system it is needed. Also sometimes it reduces the anxiety to the animal, so there is no anxiety to the animal, and you can also conduct the euthanasia. So you ensure that the death without causing anxiety, without causing pain or distress, with minimum time lag phase. What do you mean by lag phase? Lag phase means how much time animal take. Suppose you have started the procedure of the euthanasia and animal is take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to die. So that is not good, because 5 to 10 minutes you have kept that animal to suffer and to die, isn't it? So method it should be very instant, like whatever method you adopt, within maybe 1 or 2 minutes itself animal should die. So whatever method you adopt, it should be very quick and with minimum time lag phase. Minimum physiological and psychological disturbance. So if you adopt such procedure, obviously there is no physiological and psychological disturbance occur in the animal and also to the operator. Okay, and whatever method you adopt, it must have compatibility with purpose of your study. For example, if you are using euthanasia by using different anesthetic agent or overdose of the anesthesia, then these overdose of anesthetic agent sometimes it induces certain enzyme and the secretion in your body, and it may interfere with your study. So you see what is the purpose of your study, and then you select the appropriate method. Likewise, it must produce minimum emotional effect on the operator. Suppose your method is such that which is very painful, or there is a very high level of bleeding is there in the animal, then obviously it is going to put some emotional effect on the operator. So you must avoid those methods, and it should be such that there is minimum emotional effect on the operator. In addition, location should be separated from animal room. Why? Because one animal should not see the sacrificing process of the other animal. First thing. Second thing, there shouldn't be any possibility of the disease. Okay, and it should be free from environmental contaminant. So there is less possibility of the infection. So the location should be separated from animal rooms and free from environmental contaminant. And lastly, the tranquilizers have to be administered to the large species like monkey, dog, and the cat. If you are performing the experiment, then you must give very good dose of the tranquilizer so that those animal can sleep, and while sleeping you are conducting the euthanasia procedure. So I have done with the today's part, that is the CPCSEA guideline for laboratory animal experimentation. So I have referred the different websites. So this is the first website. From there is the PDF. The link it is given. So you can download the PDF and study in the detail, although I have just given the highlight of this guideline. And second, it is directly from the CPCSEA website. So very good and updated website. It is maintained by the central government, CPCSE authority. So if you want to see the Form A, Form B, Form C, Form D, likewise what are the different guidelines which are I have not covered, because it is thoroughly need number of hours to complete all the guidelines related to the CPCSEA. I have just taught you what are the important as far as your syllabus is concerned, and what are the only important guidelines that I expect that at least the B Farm graduate he must know before passing out the examination. Okay, so you can go through this website. I will put this link, or I will send this link in our WhatsApp group also, so you can just go through this link and look into the different guidelines. So thanks for watching the session. If you like my session, then do remember to give me a thumbs up.